You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Welcome to SeriousGrowth.com, where the truth is told. On our show today, from a long ways away, down under in Australia, please welcome Mr. Ken Ross. Ken, how are you?
Good, Leo. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good for my age. You know how it goes. I don't know. How old are you anyway? You mind me asking you? Give me a range.
I'm 52 now.
Wow, what a youngster that I'm talking to. 52. Boy, I remember those days. As a matter of fact, when I was 56, I came back from a 13-year layoff to see if muscle really had memory, you know. The crazy thing is you never really, as a bodybuilder, I don't know how about with you, but as a bodybuilder, when I was told that there's a mind and muscle connection and that muscle has memory, I just believed it in blind faith, you know. But I know for a fact that actually is true. How many years you've been training now?
Training for 34 years now, Leo, since I was 18.
44 years.
34.
Oh, 34. Yeah, I saw that in your bio, but I wasn't sure if you actually started training sooner than that, like lifting weights. I know, like in high school, I lifted weights, but I consider my training as it began when I was bodybuilding, because that's really when things started changing for me. Hey, listen, I met you at the International Olympia, and I could tell in about 5 seconds that it was obvious that everyone around knew who you were. I mean, I picked up on that right away. So I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? So was bodybuilding your first sport that you got into, or did you play other sports?
I played rugby league, which is a version of rugby as you would know it, which is a tough sport, I guess, like NFL without pads and helmets.
Yeah.
So that explains some of my good looks.
I see you didn't lead with your head, so to speak.
Yeah, pretty much. But what was interesting, Leo, is the way I got into bodybuilding was I started a job, and the job with the government, and that involved a training course when I was 18. And a lot of the young guys used to surf who were in the training group because they lived near the ocean and I didn't. And they said, "What do you do for fun?" And I went, "Oh, nothing much." And they said, "Why don't you start doing some weights?" And I went, "Okay, I'll do that." And that's how it started. It was that simple. Yeah.
And when you got started like that, I mean, who influenced you? I mean, how did you actually learn how to bodybuild? Because that's obviously an art and a discipline in itself, right?
Yeah, well, pretty much probably the same as you, Leo, through the magazines.
Yeah.
As obviously back then there was no internet, but through the magazines, like Flex Magazine, Muscle and Fitness, all those magazines, like you'd hang out for them to come out every month.
Yeah.
You'd get down there and you'd buy them all, and then of course I just followed the training programs and the diet information from those magazines.
Was Joe Weider big in Australia?
Yeah, he was huge. So pretty much in Australia back in those days, there was probably 2 or 3 brands of supplements available.
Is that right?
And one was Hawley's. You probably remember them. They sort of like made a small comeback. And the main one was Joe Weider Victory Series.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that, for sure.
Yeah, like the Mega Mass 2000 and then the Mega Mass 5000 came out. So pretty much they put more sugar in it to boost the calories up.
That and they get you more addicted. That's what that was all about,
Yeah, but that's all we had and that's all we knew. So that's what we did. Yeah.
How long did it take before? I'm assuming that the information came from the U.S. and there was a lag time before you saw the information. How much of a lag time would there be back then, you think?
Well, as you know, the Olympia has been traditionally held in September every year. All around the world. So if it was held in September, we'd find out the results of the Olympia probably in the January or February edition of Flex Magazine.
No kidding.
The following year. Yeah.
Oh,
and if you didn't have any contacts, because there was no Facebook and no internet.
Yeah.
So you had no contacts, but usually somebody in one of the gyms had heard a rumor that somebody had won Mr. Olympia.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but still at that point, that's a rumor. You're not for sure if that's actually the case.
Yeah, but back in those days, it was Dorian Yates, so he'd won like 6 in a row, so you'd expect him to keep winning.
Yeah.
and he was a huge inspiration for me, Dorian.
I was going to ask you who influenced you. I guess you just told me, Dorian. Was there any particular reason why?
I think I was impressed, like everybody else in the world, by his back.
Yeah.
So you know how young bodybuilders today, and probably for many years, it was always chest and biceps where they go to exercises.
Yeah. And
they would train them, 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah, the show muscles.
The show muscles. Well, mine became the back because of Dorian.
Yeah.
So my lat development is quite. It's actually too much. It's overbalanced my physique.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit undersized in the chest, but my lat development is quite oversized, and that's why, because of Dorian.
Yeah.
I just did everything he did.
Yeah, I really liked. I was drawn to his physique, as well as you probably remember Mike Mintzner.
Yeah.
Remember him?
Heavy duty.
Yeah. Heavy duty.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And I actually met Dorian at the Arnold Classic. We went there many years ago. We had a booth there, and it just so happened that Dorian was sitting right behind me, and of course that was the first time I ever was that close to him. And I want to tell you something. Did you ever meet that guy?
I did. Yeah, I did. Many years later, he came to Australia post-competition.
Yeah.
But it was only briefly I met him. Yeah.
I got to tell you something. He was really good for the sport. That guy was amazingly nice. You never know what to expect when you meet people, Yeah. And because just like in every other industry, there are those that are just, they're kind of wannabes and they're jerks. And then there are those that are just true ambassadors of the sport. And Tom Platz was another one, as far as I'm concerned. But Dorian was just so down to earth. And I mean, it was just like you and I carrying on the conversation. And I walked away from that. And the guy was really, I mean, you could tell that he was a student of the game. He really did understand that. Okay. So I'm reading with your bio here. All these years that you've been in the sport now, you've landed in the Hall of Fame, huh?
Yeah, that was 2018 that happened.
Wow.
The INBA Hall of Fame. So that was a huge honor.
Yeah.
Very, very unexpected. And I think I'm only one of 4 Australians that are in the INBA.
Is that right? So how do they, I mean, I got a little bit of a glimpse of that after the event was over this year. Didn't they honor some people at the Hall of Fame? There were some Hall of Famers they introduced or something?
They did. They added another 5 this year. They usually add up to 5. And this year they added 5 more. 1 from Germany. I think 3 from the USA. And there was 1 other I can't remember. But
how do they end up picking the Hall of Famers? There must be a formula of some kind that they use, right?
Yeah, they use the principles of integrity, honor, loyalty, and dedication and things like this. They really look towards. I think loyalty is the big one. People who are loyal to INBA, who are always positive, promote the sport well, and pretty much a good ambassador for the federation.
Something, and that was really apparent to me. Because I've told this story several times. When I was there, the last time I did events like that was back in the 90s. And the feel, when I was at this Olympia, the feeling was just so much different. I really couldn't put my finger on it until it was like, oh, wait a minute, this camaraderie is the way it should be. And like it was back when guys weren't afraid. I don't know if afraid is the right word, but they weren't, they weren't worried about sharing information. I mean, when I first met Mike Mintzner, and I can't even remember the show. I think it was in Vegas somewhere. These guys were just very willing to share information, and it seemed like that went away in the sport until I went to this Olympia. I mean, Ken, I tell you what, it was not just 1 or 2 people that were with integrity and positive. It was like the whole. It was freaking me out, kind of. It's like, this is too good to be true. And so it's very apparent that they really do believe in that. I can tell that, and of course, like I said, I mean, I met you, and right off the bat, it was like you're a perfect example of what that organization is all about, And I see that you won 5 world titles, 114 INBA, PNBA in 12 countries. My. You've been busy,
Yeah.
haven't you?
Yeah, just a little.
What, you don't have anything else to do or what?
No, well, yeah, pretty much. No, I love it. I love it, Leo, and you could probably tell that like you do.
Yeah.
I love competing. I love training. I love experimenting on my own body, pushing myself to the limits in all areas.
Yeah.
And, pretty much I use myself as a guinea pig for my clients.
Yeah.
So anything I give to my clients, I've tried on myself. And of course, we're talking all natural here, no drugs at all. And yeah, I just love it. I love pushing the human body to its boundaries.
You know what? With that being said, it's amazing what your body can go through and the boundaries that it can be pushed to, you know?
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but over the years, I found in some cases, I found where I went too far with some of the stuff that I did. But even that being said, it was amazing what your mind and your body can do when it has to, or when you put it in that sort of that situation. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think that as a trainer, like you are, a coach and a trainer, I think there's no better way than to learn it from firsthand, to be able to communicate that to your client that you're working with, because, you know, that right there in itself gives you a credibility that no one else has. And, you know, the part of the reason why I've gotten back into this side of the sport again is because of, you know, all of a sudden I started, like, when I retired, I pretty much got away from being like in the middle of stuff, you know, but then I just started, I was curious with all the social media. And one of the things I think I noticed, in my opinion, was that too many of the people that were out there weren't doing this from necessarily firsthand experience. I mean, they were, I don't know, man. I could just tell by the way they were talking and the articles that they're writing that, wait a minute, you're not the real deal, man. I mean, I'm like you, you know, let me learn this from firsthand before I tell you, because what you end up doing as a trainer like that, all of a sudden you're letting your client know, you know, what they can expect ahead of time. And that's huge.
Yeah, totally agree, Leo. And, you know, I like to lead from the front. I like my people to see what I'm doing and how I do it. And it gives them, I guess it gives them inspiration. And, you know, it's, you know, I've done what they've done. And as you know, doing competitions is you go through various stages. And when you take yourself to the next level of every stage, and probably dieting's the hardest one, you keep going harder and harder, you start experiencing new things.
Yeah.
Now, with my clients, I can pre-warn them about these things that are going to happen, because that's why comp prep is so scary, especially for a new person.
Oh yeah.
Is because it's the unexpected, it's the unknown, it's frightening, you know.
Yeah.
So
really
I've been there, done that to pretty much every level, and I keep pushing the levels and the boundaries, so I can pre-warn my people about what's going to happen. And if they ask me something and say, hey, listen, this happened, what does that mean? I say, oh, that's normal.
Yeah.
That's what happens. That's actually a good sign that you're going through that. Now, I draw the analogy, like you said before, that you have to actually do something. And Lee Haney actually said this. He said, to be a teacher of something, you have to be a student of it first.
Right. That is so true. That's
exactly
true.
So what amazes me, Leo, now you see there's many life coaches popping up, but some of them are 20-year-old kids.
Yeah. Come on now.
How can you be a life coach at 20?
Right.
You haven't had a life. So
yeah. Well, I guess you can if you're a social media trainer, because, you know, people just follow along. And sometimes I just often wonder that I think social media, the following of social media, and again, I'm liking social media. I'm learning a lot about it. But it seems to me that some of the social media, the followers, are kind of reminds me of like the Sports Illustrated bunch. You know, they read the magazines because they get off on you know, being a voyeur and following along. And then, of course, like you said, how can you be 20 and, you know, write a love song if you're a country singer, or as a personal trainer tell somebody what to do, unless you're just a freak of nature? I don't know. You know, I get that. I totally agree with you. Well, as far as your training philosophy, what is that? I mean, I'm sure if you're like me, it's changed over the years. But what would you say? Let's just maybe, not only do I want to know about your training philosophy, but how has it changed over the years? Maybe that's the other question too.
And I think that's the most pertinent point, Leo, is the change. It has to change.
Yeah.
As you get older, it has to change. Probably like you, when I was younger, I was crazy. I would lift as heavy as I could. I didn't really care about form too much. And that's just from being uneducated. I had no one to show me when I was younger. So I just looked at the magazines. I saw Dorian doing super heavy stuff. I thought, well, I can do that. And then I saw, somebody else's, Paul Dillette's training program. So I followed that.
Yeah.
Not realizing that, that these people were, having some further assistance than what I was. But it just didn't work. And pretty much I'm paying for it now with not debilitating injuries, but niggling, annoying injuries.
Oh, yeah.
That were from, we've all got that from years ago if we had to use correct form. And what's changed now is I've had to reduce the weight pretty much because of these, minor injuries.
Yeah.
But what that's done is taught me form. It's taught me good form. And things that I've learned over the years is when you get an injury, it's a new injury, it's quite frightening, but you need to treat it aggressively and treat it aggressively with ice and, physiotherapy, etc.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, and like when you get a recurring injury, it's because you've done the same thing again that you've done before, and you need to learn from that. So,
you definitely need to pay attention and be aware of what you're doing, because like you're saying, basically, if you don't, you're going to make the same mistake more than once, and it could have the consequences can be devastating, if you don't pay attention. You might get a pass once, maybe twice, but you're really exposing yourself to that. I have to tell you something that was kind of interesting, something that you mentioned. When I was in learning like you did, I'd be in the magazines. I'm thinking, I'd even be to the point where I'd read the article and then I'd see how much weight that they were doing in the shot. I'm thinking, how in the hell can I be that much weaker than those guys? It was really weird. And I found out when I went down to Venice Beach I was lucky enough, of all the training competitions I did, I think my biggest feat, if you will, was actually being able to do a photo shoot in Gold's Gym, where all the pros were, and feel like I belonged there, because that was super intimidating, like very much like clients when they come to you. They're very intimidated sometimes,
Yeah.
But here's what I learned. Not only did they, in some of those photo shoots, that they use fake weights, okay, because they did, and I did. I always wondered how they could hold that, 140-pound dumbbell and make it so easy. Well, I found out, But here's the other thing that I thought that was interesting was when, like with Dorian, listen, I love these guys for what they did. You can't take that stuff away, because as you and I know, it's way more than, I'm not condoning enhancing. Okay, I'm not. But it still comes down to doing the work. You got to do, as a bodybuilder, no matter what, you have to do the work, and there's a certain mindset there, no matter what anybody's going to tell you to get to that level, But what I learned about Mike Minster, who was heavy duty, and, Casey Viator, do you remember him?
Yeah, Mr. Forearms.
Yep. And so it was kind of during that time for me, it was Casey Viator. Of course, he did that. He was hooked up with Arthur Jones of Nautilus, and they did this study. And, of course, then there was Mike Minster, heavy duty, and then Dorian. But the thing that they really didn't tell you was, and I saw these guys train. That's why I went down there. I was close enough to Gold's Gym, 200 miles away. And I lived down there in a hotel for a while, because I wanted to see exactly what these pros were doing and what they were saying. And, Mike Minster and these guys and Dorian, they were actually doing more volume than they were talking about in the magazines. The high intensity training and the heavy duty training, that was their unique selling proposition. That's how they stood out from, the next person. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the truth of what I saw. I go, okay, now that makes sense, because I was under the impression that was just like Mike did the rest pause. You do one all out, ret, and then you rest. And it was like, do 1 or 2 sets of that, and then you're good to go. I'm thinking, how the heck can that be? But when you studied and looked at what they did overall, that was part of their training. They were doing actually more volume, which bodybuilding is about volume, more volume versus heavier weight. I talked in that one of my posts today. So, it can be misleading a little bit. And not only that, it can be dangerous because I don't know, with me, I was like trying to achieve that. And it was like, whoa, I was setting myself for a lot of injuries because I wasn't ready for it at that time and to begin with, So when you train now, are you still training today, I assume? These
Yeah,
still go
of
in?
course.
How many days a week are you training?
Yeah, Leo, I aim for 7, and I know it's good to have a rest day. And invariably something crops up where I'm unable to train, so that becomes my rest day.
Yeah.
In the old days, I used to be extremely regimented. So, Monday would be chest day, Tuesday would be back day, and it was regimented. I'd stick to it vehemently. But now it's fluid. If I feel like I needed to rest that body part a little more, I'll switch the exercise. I'll change the body part.
Yeah.
So if I've done back and I'm due to do biceps, maybe a few days later, but my biceps are still a little bit sore from the back workout, I'll drop that. I'll drop that and train something totally unrelated. And that's what I base a lot of my all my training programs around non-conflicting body parts.
Yeah.
So I'll try and keep chest and shoulders away from each other. I'll try and keep back and hamstrings away from each other. I'll try and keep back and quads away from each other as much as I can. I'll try and keep back and biceps away from each other, chest and triceps away from each other. But if they have to be in close proximity, I'll actually put them into one workout.
Yeah.
Because chest and triceps in one workout will work.
Yeah. The fascinating thing about talking with so many people and the way that they train is that there's so many ways to skin the cat, and when I was younger, I was so black and white. I thought for sure it was like, okay, you do this and this and you're going to get this result. And then of course, as I'm going through the process, there's the way that you train is pretty unique to how you do it, and yet I've trained differently than my philosophy is actually different than yours. So there's one of the things that Tom Platz taught me along the way was to trust your intuition and be intuitive. But obviously you can't just do that from day one. That's a learned skill because it kind of goes against, it's counterintuitive in a way sometimes when you think, well, maybe I shouldn't train this body part for a few days. In the same way that Tom said there'd be days that he would train that body part for 4 or 5 days in a row. And that was just his intuitive side. And I tell you what, when you get to that point, in my opinion, what a good feeling that is because you trust that. And most people can't do that. And that in itself, for you now being a coach, how valuable is that? I mean, because people are going in and saying, well, I've heard that I should do this. And you're saying, well, I can tell you from personal experience that that's not the case. But I just like the idea that it's not just one way. It's a bunch of ways that you can train the body. But again, what you learn to do is be aware of how everything is going on inside and outside, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also back to the Tom Platz thing, he was very intuitive because his intuition said, hey, train legs as much as you can.
Yeah.
And he obviously did because he had the best legs ever.
Yeah.
Like, to this day, he's got the best legs ever. So I did the same thing with back, but I've changed that around now. I've changed that, I guess you'd call it counterintuitive. I've looked at my weak body parts and really focusing on those.
Yeah.
Which is important to bring up balance and symmetry. But like you said, it's what you touched on earlier about I can teach people, how to train. Most of my instruction in my gym is when people come to me for the first time, it's not about lifting heavy weights. It's about form.
Oh, yeah.
It's about form. It's about weights. I use broomsticks, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's about form and how to lift weights. And I show people how to do things, how to unrack a weight, how to re-rack it. And these are all from personal experience, Leo, because I've torn muscles putting a barbell back into a rack.
Yeah.
Because I relaxed it on the last rep.
Right.
I went, relaxed and put it back. You've got to keep that intensity. It's like You know, it's like the 100-meter dash at the Olympics. You can't get to the 90-meter line and go, oh, I've done now. You've got to set your sights past that finish line. And that's with everything you do in life. And that'll get you to the finish line at full speed. Yeah.
Well, it's something that I learned because I've been an athlete all my life. And then I didn't start training for bodybuilding until I was 27, which is kind of late in the sport. But, you know, one of the things I learned right away was you're really only as good as your form and technique. You know, so if you develop bad habits, you're compromising and minimizing that potential for reaching the top because of that's what you're saying. And do you remember a guy by the name of, I'm sure you do, Vince Gironda?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Vince and I actually got to know him really well. Did you ever meet him, that guy?
I never met him. No.
Yeah. You would have known if you had met him. That guy was one in a million. I promise you that. I mean, he was something else. He was very eccentric, Vince was, but I tell you what, I was very fortunate that I was able to train in his gym in Studio City. And this is going to what you were talking about. One of the things he was big on was it wasn't about, for bodybuilding anyway, he says it's not about the amount of weight that you're lifting because you're not being judged on strength on stage. It's about the angles. And he was so big on training the one body part from, you know, over a course of time with many different angles to get that benefit. And I think, you know, Vince was right about that. And you're that's what you're talking about. It's like form and technique, especially in the beginning, it's huge. And too many people get in too big a rush because especially the guys, I think, the ego about, you know, doing more and they just get ahead of themselves. And I'll tell you what, it's a hard thing to do, to put a bit in your mouth and to slow yourself down. And yet I think as a trainer, I think that's one of the best qualities that you could have, because what people want and what they need many times are two different things, especially the young ones or the new ones in that world. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%, Lee. And I say to many people, if I could show you the version of you, the people that I train, if I could show you the version of you in 10 years' time of, you know, lifting as you are now, as opposed to lifting to how I'm teaching you, you'd be amazed at the difference in the physique.
Oh, yeah. The minute Tom Platz was really Vince and Tom were really huge influences for me, because Vince taught me how to train versus how to just lift weights. And you're mentioning that right there. And Tom taught me how to be intuitive, and he taught me how to feel everything that I train. And most people don't do that, you know. And of course with Tom, if you ever knew all about his training, because he took me under his wing, and I trained with Tom for quite a while for when I got up into the higher ranks. And one of the things I noticed about Tom was he was very unorthodox in the way he trained sometimes. You would see him doing like these, it looked like he was like had bad form and technique and the stuff that he was doing. But he was actually feeling what he was training. And that's what I think most people, of course, how could you know that unless you really understood him and had enough information underneath your belt to know that he's actually, even though his form doesn't look right, I call that loose style training, he was feeling everything that he was training. And when I learned that from Mr. Tom Platz, the changes in my physique from one year to the next were, unbelievable, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I agree, Leo. And one of the things that I've found, and you would have found, and Tom and probably everyone else that's trained for many years, is it's all about the feel. And as human beings, we always try to take shortcuts and make things easier for ourselves. That's in our nature. That's what we do. That's why we're the dominant species on the planet. We've got the most intelligence. We've taken the most shortcuts, and we can get to the quickest point. And quite often that's bad in bodybuilding. I say to people, you want your body to fail. You want to make this rep and this set as hard as you can to make your body fail.
Yeah.
And, you know, a classic example is squatting, where you might be going deep, and then you add some more weight and you don't go as deep, and then you add some more weight, and pretty much you're just doing knee bends at the top. So it's
exactly.
So you want to, and another way I learned this was doing seated calf raises. Now, for some reason, everybody does this, and I used to do it as well. As it got heavier and heavier on the seated calf raise machine, I'd lean backwards.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was making it easier. And I thought, well, if that's making it easier, what's going to make it harder? So I actually lean right over forwards.
Yeah.
the opposite, the exact opposite, and that works.
Yeah.
That makes the seated calf raise extremely difficult and extremely hard. It's like you're adding your own body weight to the actual lift. So I teach people that. I say, whatever's making it easier for you, think the opposite and do the opposite, and that will make the exercise harder, and that will make the muscle fail earlier.
Yeah, and the thing about that is you're going to get, Tom used to say, walking in fire. You know, I mean, how many people want to do that? I mean, unless they hear from somebody who's got that experience and say, look, this is how you really need to be doing this, because you're really not doing yourself a favor. I mean, who the heck wants to do that? It takes a certain mindset, you know, to be able to do this sport. I mean, I was, you know, in a lot of football. I played kind of sort of the American traditional sports, but wow, bodybuilding was a whole different animal, you know, for me. So what's your, now I kind of know where you're at with your training, but what's your nutrition philosophy? How do you, I mean, yours personally, and do you pass that on, you know, to your clients?
Yeah, it's interesting, Leo. As you know, I've done 114 competitions, and no prep has been the same as the last one. They've all been different. I've tried, you know, umpteen different methods of dieting for competition and for off season. I'm still looking for that holy grail, as we all are. I'm sure it'll come one day. But yeah, as with my training philosophy, I don't get people to do things diet-wise that I haven't done. And once again, like you said, with training, everybody's different. I'm different to you with diet. You know, the traditional, you know, we carb up prior to comp, which is quite standard across the board in bodybuilding competitions. You know, I've even trained clients that didn't work for, so I had to load them up on fats. So pretty much they ate salmon, nuts, and avocados 2 days out from comp, and that worked a treat for them. So everybody's totally different. With the people that I diet for competition and for non-competition, which is a lot of people around the world also, I take into their dietary considerations, you know, their cultures, cultural beliefs, their religion, intolerances, allergies, and things like that, and even things they don't like to eat. And I say to people, I won't make you eat anything you cannot or will not eat, because there's a solution and a replacement for all type of food. And I'm not a vegan. I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not anti-vegan, and I'm not anti-vegetarian either. So I can do diets for everybody or anybody, and I have done that. And they all work. I'm not going to say one diet's better than the other, because I haven't personally experienced all diets. But I think the main thing with dieting, Leo, is that diets actually work if you stick to them.
Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the bottom line. All diets work if you stick to them. Yeah.
No good. And that cracks me up about, you know, this isn't really applying to bodybuilding, but just like in my studio, most of the people that come there are there for fitness as opposed to bodybuilding, you know, and that extreme sport. But I talk about that all the time because, you know, there's all these fad diets that are out there, Nutrisystems, and, you know, those things work to a degree, a small degree. And, you know, and why don't they work overall? Because people don't stay on them. They stay on them. They buy the product until they lose the weight, and then they go back to their old habits. And guess what? Actually, if you look at the stats, those people, after coming off those quick fix diets, they actually 8 months down the road, they're a high degree of those people are actually in worse shape than when they first started that program, because they rebound and all kinds of weird stuff happens. But you're 100% on point when it comes to the diet part of it. You know, you have to create something that is lifestyle and user friendly, and that you're taking a lot of factors there that nobody even thinks about, you know, and that's very forward thinking. I can tell by you got a ton of experience, and it's, you know, quite obvious. My one of my questions would be is protein intake. What kind of what's your philosophy and take on how much protein that one should take in?
You know, wow, Leo, this is, you know, from personal experience and from things I've read over the years. As you know, this changes pretty much every week. The experts change their mind every week. You remember back in the day, it was no more than 30 grams of protein per serve, or your body can't digest it.
Yeah.
And then it was, and you remember this one, it was as soon as you finish training, the first hour you put the carbs in, and then the second hour you put the protein in. You remember that from the magazines back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
That was another concept. I tried all these, and how do you measure that? Does it work? Does it not work? I pretty much I've tried everything. I've tried breaking meals into just pure protein, and then the next meal is pure carbs. I've done pure protein, pure carb, pure fat meals.
Yeah.
I've tried all fat meals. I've tried all carb meals. I've tried all protein meals, and I've pretty much come back full circle to the conclusion that if you include proteins, fats, and carbs, good fats, and carbs in every meal, that works.
Yeah.
That works just as effective. And the amount of protein may be 30 grams. And it all depends on who you are. Like young guys say to me, hey, how can I get big? How can I put on weight? And this goes back to the old Vince Gironda days. Just eat everything. Eat everything in sight. Because I remember his diets were milk, cream, whole eggs.
Oh, yeah. Steak and eggs.
Steak and eggs. And I say to people, they say, what's the best muscle building food? And I said, back in the day for me, it was steak.
Yeah.
Beef steak was a huge muscle building food for me. Eggs.
Yeah. When I was, of course, Mincer was a big, he was like, he said, no more than, half a gram per 1 pound of body weight. I mean, he totally believed that. And yet when I went to Bulgaria and I trained with the Bulgarian national weightlifting team, they were amazing how far ahead they were compared to us. I mean, as far as certain things. And one of the things they were big on was that they said, like, the more stress that you put your body under, you need to eat up to 3 and 4 grams of protein for 1 pound of body weight. That's the stark differences, And again, like you're saying, I mean, there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. One of the things that I learned that my body responded better to I wrote a diet with, you remember a guy named Mauro Di Pasquale?
No.
Okay, Mauro Di Pasquale, he's a doctor, and ended up writing, he actually has written the ketogenic diet. I think it's what he calls one of his books that he wrote. Well, he wrote a book with me called The Anabolic Diet. And the anabolic diet is basically a low carb diet. It was taking the idea that Atkinson, you remember him, the Atkinson diet, the Vince Gironda diet, the ketogenic diet, the anabolic diet, and these are all. And then now the big one is the keto diet. They're all similar in the way that the way they access the free fatty acid metabolism. It's just a switch in your metabolism. Your body and it has to do with you. I'm not telling you something you don't know, but it's that when you eat 30 to 40 grams a day, then your body is going to switch from a carb-based burning metabolism to burning free fatty acid. And I always did better for whatever reason, just the way my body was. I did better on a high-fat diet, and I did that all the way through my competition. One of the things that you're talking about early on was you were saying that, there people are still out there carb loading before their event, carb load and carb depletion. But here's one of the things, because I tried that too, and I don't know if you, this is something that happened with you. That was very tricky when I did that, because at that time I wasn't doing that every weekend, or it was usually something I did and pre-contesting, and all of a sudden I did this carb loading and carb depletion before a show. But I never tested that out in the off season. So I didn't really know how the body was going to respond. Consequently, I mistimed most of the time coming into the show in my best condition. And when I learned about that was when I switched over and I did this anabolic diet, because Mauro, what we did is I did 5 days on, Monday through Friday was the low fat diet. That would keep my metabolism to free fatty acid. And then on a weekend, I would carb load. Every single weekend. I did that.
Test run.
I did that all the way to the show. So I already knew on the weekend when I was carb loading, because that tied in with all the shows are on the weekend. And I already knew how many hours it would be before the carbohydrates would start spilling over into the subcutaneous skin. So I remember doing my national show. These guys were looking at me like I was insane. I was eating, I mean, basically just whatever the heck I wanted. And these guys were like, you know, the day of the show, they're being very careful about that. I could tell they were doing that carb load, and they weren't really quite sure as to how the body was going to respond. So it was almost like I came in my best shape on that show where I was doing this carb loading every single weekend. That was my, you know, I did better on high fat and high protein than I did on carbohydrates. Again, you know, there's a lot of ways to skin that cat, right?
Yeah, and that's smart. And it's also, you know, you're on a diet, you know, pretty much a similar diet leading all the way up to the show. Then all of a sudden, the last week you change that diet, that can mess around with your body, something bad. It can have a good effect or a bad effect because your body gets shocked.
Yeah.
But you had trained your body the whole year to do that.
The body becomes dysfunction, you know, and then all of a sudden you do that to it, right?
Yeah, it's smart. It's really, really smart. And actually, I pretty much did keto, and it was very strict keto as well.
Yeah.
For the Natural Olympia, leading up to that, and I dropped a lot of weight. I had to because I was behind in my prep.
Yeah.
But it works for me as well. And once you get past that initial 2 to 3 days where the carbs come out of your system, and you're getting that brain fade, and you're starting to crash, and then all of a sudden the fats start kicking in.
Right.
And your brain function comes back, and you're feeling really good. That's good. You just got to get through those first 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. I found that I actually had more energy on eating the fat than I did eating the carbohydrates for me, you know. And one of the things that people always say, well, how is it, you know, it's a misconception. They said, well, you have to have carbohydrates for energy. And I said, well, that's not exactly true, because they didn't understand that when your body flips over and is in now free fatty acid metabolism, it's burning fat as its main energy source.
Yes.
You know? And what about the, you know, so that's your energy. And really, physiologically, the only part of your body that needs any carbohydrate to stay alive is the brainstem. And it doesn't take much. Your body can, as you, I'm sure know, your body can take a carbon out of protein, break it down into sugar, and take care of the brainstem, no problem. But, you know, again, all this, I guess everything that we're saying, it comes down to you need to do this stuff in a way that you have enough experience to be able to not only learn for yourself, but teach your athletes. How much cardio do you have your athletes do?
And once again, that's an individual thing, Leo. And people ask me this when they sign up. They go, how much cardio will I be doing?
Yeah.
And I say to them, it'll be anywhere between 3 hours a day and 0. And they go, what do you mean? I say, well, if you don't do everything I tell you and you're way behind at 2 weeks out, you'll be doing 3 hours every day.
Yeah.
But if you follow the program and you respond quite well, you'll be on 0 cardio up to the day of the show.
Yeah.
It's whatever people need, and everybody's individual. For myself, it started half an hour a day. And then, as I said, I was way behind. So 2 to 3 weeks out, it went to an hour, hour and a half. And the last day before the Olympia, it was about 2.5 hours a day. That was broken over 2 sessions.
Yeah.
And low impact, steady state, Stairmaster type cardio. But yeah, everybody's different. So it depends, you know, your starting point, your finishing point, how you progress throughout my program. And even to the point of things like your family history of heart disease.
Yeah.
I even take things like that into consideration, your current, you know, clearance from your doctor, etc. You know, it's very ignorant to say to somebody, oh my God, you're way overweight, I better put you on 2 hours cardio a day. You might give them a heart attack.
Oh God, yes.
They might be predisposed to that sort of thing. So you'll be very careful there as well.
Well, and yet, you know, like there's across the board with coaches, sometimes you see coaches doing things with their athletes that's like, oh my goodness, you know, it's obvious that you don't know what you're talking about. And so many of these clients that are, I'm just saying that I think that so many of these clients, based on what I'm seeing with social media world, they're putting their hands in with trainers sometimes, and they have no idea because they're unsuspecting. You know, they're putting their confidence and their, you know, in your hands. And boy, just like what you're saying, if you get a hold of a trainer that says, oh yeah, you know, we got to cut some weight right now, get out there and put one of those sweatsuits on and go run 3 miles and then come back and see me, he'll never probably see that person again.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I noticed in your in your bio was that you do a lot of competition prep as a coach, but do you work with athletes also in their off season, or do they do their own off season and they come to you and say, okay, I'm ready? Or do you walk them from, cradle to grave, so to speak?
Yeah, I have some competitors that have stuck with me through every competition and every off season. I have some people, well, most people come to me, and it's rare that they come to me and I can get them ready in 10 to 12 weeks, because they're usually way behind that. People underestimate how much weight they have to actually lose, how much body fat they have to lose, especially guys. Guys will, and I'm talking about natural guys. Guys will come to me, they're at 95 kilos. They go, I'm going to get on stage at 91. I'm going,
yeah.
You'll be on stage at 72 kilos, okay?
Yeah.
So people overestimate how much muscle they actually carry. And so, I say to people, there's probably only a couple of people. One girl came to me at 12 weeks out, and she was already a track runner, and she just wanted to do a bikini show. And I looked at her, and she already had pretty much had abs. And I said to her, go away, come back and see me at 6 weeks out.
Yeah.
And we'll work on it from there. That was a rare exception. But most people need long term. So pretty much I'm doing their off season and their comp prep rolled into one with my program.
Yeah.
So the two people that I took to the Natural Olympia this year, client from India and the other one from Saudi Arabia, they're following up with post-comp off-season programs, to get ready for next year's competition season. So what we're going to work on with those people is to look at their weak points and to bring those up.
Got it. What do you find is the most challenging part of the program for your athletes, would you say? I mean, I guess what I'm asking, for me, there's three components that need to be manipulated, which include weight training, cardio, and nutrition. That's my philosophy.
Yep.
And I know what's most challenging for the athletes that I work with, but what do you find, I want to hear from you, what do you find is the most challenging part as a coach, with your athletes?
This is as a whole, this is not everybody, but this is most people, is the nutrition.
Yeah.
I say to people, any monkey can lift a weight if you're shown how. Anybody can do 30 minutes cardio a day on a bike or a treadmill. But to diet seriously for, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, that's hard. And that's why bodybuilding, competition bodybuilding is one of the hardest. I'll call it sport loosely. I like to call it an art form.
Yeah.
It's hard because of the duration.
Yeah.
If you had to diet for 3 or 4 days, that's fine. It's the duration of it. And it's not just the monotony of eating food and bringing your body fat down and everything that goes along with that. It's the total destruction of your social life.
Yeah, that's for damn sure.
That's where people fail.
Woo,
because
baby.
of temptations, and it's hard, especially on your first one when, people are saying, hey, let's go out drinking and let's go to this party. And people will say, and the worst people are your family members.
Yeah.
They'll say to you, oh, that's okay. You can just have one. You can just do this.
Yeah. One more. What's it going to hurt? They don't get it.
It's not going to hurt you. And, and it's hard for people, because competitive bodybuilders are in a vast minority of society. They're 0.0001%. It's like a freak show.
Yeah, exactly.
And I say to people who come to watch a bodybuilding show for the first time, I say to them, it's going to be like the first time you went to the circus as a child.
Yeah.
You'd be sitting there going, oh my God, what's this? This is amazing.
I know. That's
so,
true.
It's definitely nutrition, Leo.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I was always dieting in the 15 years that I was competing. I was always dieting during Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's.
Yep.
And you're right. It's like, the funny thing about that is some people get so offended, it's usually the people that are closest to you, because hey, I'll go out with you guys, but I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because I have to stick to something. What is your problem? What do I have to, it's about being social, and they didn't really understand that, and I agree with you. And listen, it got crazy for me sometimes, even to the point, I'll tell you this quick little story. I went out with at that time, it was my girlfriend, and I'm doing this bodybuilding show coming up in Belgium. And I told her, I said, look, especially now, it's not so, when I'm in the off season, but when we go out to eat together, I told her, order what you want. Because now I'm dieting for the show, right? I said, order what you want. Because I don't want you eating off my plate. Because she had a tendency of doing that, which I was okay with during the off season.
Yeah.
And I said, and then I'll be a son of a gun. She reached across and took something, and we're in the restaurant, and she put it in her mouth. And Ken, I'm not proud of this. I went over there and I took that thing out of her mouth. And I said, "Don't eat my food." Every calorie means something to me. I mean, I was an idiot for doing that, I guess. But it never happened again. I'll tell you that. And she stuck around for a few more months, whatever. But people,
wow, solid girl.
Yeah, but people don't understand that side of it. How can you?
Yeah, that's true. And you're totally right. You're like a rabid animal.
Oh.
And if your meal consists of 10 almonds, and you drop one on the floor, you pick it up and you eat it. You're not going to lose 10% of your meal.
Yeah.
Or you drop 3 grains of rice on the bench. You're going to pick them up and eat them.
No, I totally, it's, but boy, I'll tell you what, from doing that over all these years, it gives you a mindset that is absolutely unwavering, even to the point, like for me, the mindset sometimes put me at risk because I wouldn't pay attention, like with my training, especially, like if I needed to slow down a bit, or, I was putting because of the mindset, it was like, no, I can overcome this. And that can be obviously very dangerous. But yeah, the nutrition side of it, going back to the original question, was it's the nutrition, because they don't understand, you go in and you train and do your cardio and all that. That could be anywhere from 4 to 6 times a week, maybe even 7, but you're only in the gym, and maybe an hour and a half. The diet is 24/7. And that thing will grate on you and will beat you down. It's actually, I think, the defining factor of the 3 components.
100%, Leo. And that's the whole misconception with the fitness industry, and that's in especially the gym industry, is people are encouraged to join gyms to improve their physique and to lose weight pretty much. Now, you can go to the gym 7 days a week, every day of the year, and you can do 3 hours cardio every day. But if you go home and eating a whole bunch of rubbish, nothing's going to happen.
Right. Yeah,
it's the other way around. And people say to me, "Can you help me lose weight?" And I say, if you were in a wheelchair, I could help you lose weight.
Yeah.
It's all about the diet, and it's definitely that with, you've still got to train, and then like you said, you've still got to overcome the mental aspects of it, and you've got to push yourself beyond. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They're going to lose strength as they're getting closer to competition. I say to people, as a generalization, your big lifts like deadlifts and squat will start to suffer maybe 6 weeks out.
Yeah.
Your smaller lifts like bicep curls, etc., will start to suffer around 4 weeks out. And I say to people, if you're aware of that around those time frames, they'll come back to me and say, "Yeah, you're pretty much right." Yeah. And I say, don't be put off by your numbers going down, your weight number going down. As long as you're putting your 100%, mind focus into that workout, it's still doing something.
Yeah, it's a mind game, boy. I'll tell you, all the way through.
Oh yeah.
There was especially towards the end, like when I was competing, because you get to the point where you're almost sick of looking at yourself. I mean, it's a narcissistic type sport. Okay, it's a me sport type thing. Okay, let's be honest with, at least for me. And it got to the point where, especially towards the end, I looked in that mirror so many times, I didn't even know if I knew what I was looking at, to be honest with you. And, I had to have somebody who's an objective voice, because you would have thought that I could figure, I was a pretty good judge, but when it got some points, it's like, I don't even know if I'm seeing what I'm seeing, because, sometimes the mirror and lighting can play tricks on you in a really bad way.
It can. And I say to people, so in my gym where I'm sitting at the moment, I've set it up, and you remember the magic mirror that was at Gold's Venice?
Yeah.
I've set one up here. It's right under the skylight in the roof of my gym here, and it makes everybody look 10% better in the mirror. So that's the mirror I bring everyone in and say, "Hey," they go, "How do you think I'm going?" So let's get your gear off and let's have a look. And they look fantastic. And then they get home that night, and the next day they go, "Oh, look terrible. Look at me. I'm in my bathroom."
Exactly.
I go, "There you go. different lighting.
Oh man,
different lighting, different mirrors. Yeah,
I know. When I was in my gym getting ready and people wanted to take a look, I said, "Okay, follow me over here because I know exactly where the lighting is just perfect." And we have to wait till 10:30 in the morning because that's when the light is coming in at this angle, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm talking about. It's crazy.
Yeah, same time of year. And you know what, Leo, we had the social media filter thing down pat 20, 30 years ago. It's the same thing. We were doctoring photos 30 years ago just with lights and mirrors.
Exactly. That is so true. That's funny you say that. Okay, so you have your training studio. Is that at your house?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
You have like a special room and you have all the weights that you need, blah, 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 huh?
I do, yeah. It's not very big, but it's jam packed with pretty much how it started, Leo, was it was my private gym, collection of machines and free weights.
Yeah.
And I pretty much built it to everything that I wanted in here. So, all the things that we usually have, like the squat rack. I've got a hack squat and a leg press and cable crossover and Smith machine. And, all that sort of stuff. T-bar row, shoulder press.
That's all you need. I mean,
you have dumbbells and barbells.
Yeah.
That's all I needed. And, that's more than enough to train anyone.
Yeah.
If I can train here, anyone can.
Yeah. Now, do you, with your training, do you do like one-on-one mainly, or do you do one or two people at a time? How are you?
Yeah.
How's that set up for you?
I do mostly one-on-one stuff. I do run a group session, which is usually an outdoor fitness type session. And I actually train a lot of special needs kids and young adults, so autistic children.
Yeah. I bet you that's really good for them, huh? Yeah,
it's good. And, part of the program is to help them integrate into society better.
Yeah.
The only difference is their communication skills can be a little bit, and there's different levels on the autism spectrum of these young adults. And the only thing is some of their communication skills. So we work on that as well through the session. And it builds confidence. It's a confidence builder.
Yeah.
It's a sense of self-achievement. And, it's fulfilling for me to because I'm helping these people.
Oh yeah. Do you find that the discipline for them helps them?
It does. And what's interesting, Leo, is you show these young adults how to do an exercise, they get it first time. Exactly.
Is that right?
The form is precise every time. They're like their memory. They're like it's a snapshot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
I did not know that. That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah.
So, okay, now we're going to switch over to the natural movement.
Yep.
And again, what I saw in the Olympia in Vegas was that it seems to be something that is real. And my goodness, I mean, that was a big event with quality athletes, no doubt about it. So do you think that the natural movement, has it become more popular, would you say, like in Europe versus the US? What have you seen now since this movement has been happening?
Well, it's definitely growing, Leo. It's definitely grown in the US. It's grown in Europe. It's huge in Europe. And not many people know about that. But
I didn't. That's why I think I heard that when I was maybe I heard it from you. I'm not really quite sure, but I heard about in Europe especially, it's gotten like really, really huge, right?
Yeah, I think we were talking about that maybe at the Olympia or shortly thereafter. But it's huge in Europe. It's and I think don't quote me, but in the USA there's at least 25 natural bodybuilding organizations. There may be more, which is huge. But in Europe, pretty much every country in Europe has INBA, International Natural Bodybuilding Association.
No kidding.
It's massive. Yeah, and they take it really seriously, and the quality of the European competitors is incredible.
Yeah,
they're always shredded. They're always in condition. It was amazing.
There's no doubt it was impressive. I mean, like I said, the quality athletes up and down the scale were just they were nails. I mean, it was nice to see. In Australia or in your part of the world, how's the non-tested events going? Because I think, and again, this is only my opinion, but I think that in in our country, I think the sport of bodybuilding is not advancing itself, the non-tested stuff. I think it's more of it's a cult following. And, Joe Weider and Ben, his brother, they were trying to get this into the Olympics. Of course, for obvious reasons, that never happened. But it seems to me that at least in this country, listen, I still like looking at those guys, they're freaks. I still like that. I'm not condoning. I like seeing that, But as far as in terms of advancing the sport, I don't think it's advancing any longer. And yet I think that the potential of the natural movement, I think it has more upside than probably the non-tested. Let's just call it that, the non-tested events. Would you say that?
I'd say that's a global phenomenon, Leo, and definitely here in Australia. I think the reason is, and this won't surprise anybody, is these, and we'll talk about the open men bodybuilding and we'll say IFBB, for example, they're just getting bigger and bigger.
Oh, man.
Bigger and bigger. And that's not achievable for most, 99.99% of people, that's not achievable. But they see a natural show and they go, oh, okay, well, I look pretty much like that now. I can stand on stage with these guys and not look silly.
Yeah.
And the girls as well. Some of these girls are enormous. And then some of the, the natural girls look great. And there's a lot of girls out there that can see that as an achievable goal as well.
Well, and I think what that does is it makes it more commercial, and you're just going to bring more people to the event. And there's so many categories I noticed too. I mean, when I was competing back in those days, there weren't that many categories, but at the Olympia, there were just all kinds of categories. I thought, well, that's interesting, and they all had their, it seemed like I think like in the problem with some of our sport was that when the girls were coming through, nobody knew how to judge them. They're all mixed up, and it just seemed like at the Olympia, it was pretty obvious as to how these girls should be judged based on the category, which I thought was really interesting. It was very cool. What an experience. I was so lucky actually to choose to go to that, to the Olympia, because I really didn't, on my way back, get back into the sport again, I was asking myself, okay, how do I do this again? So that's the reason I got into podcasting, because I thought I could, build maybe a following, at least start getting some, what I thought was truthful information. At the top of the show, I talk about, the truth is going to be told in this show. And I'm really interested in that, so I thought, well, I can make myself maybe relative at all these years now that way, as well as going to an event. And I was so lucky to go to this event and meet people like yourself. And it just, I don't know, I'm so fired up again, Ken, that, even at my age, and I don't think that I'm old, but I am 64, let's just be real. But I have as much, enthusiasm and joy for this thing as, if not more, as I did when I first came through. And it's because of what I'm seeing. And I told Danny when I got up on stage, I don't know if you heard that when I was talking there, I said, this is really something that is truly advancing the sport, and it's really good to see. And I was just shocked by the camaraderie. I mean, I don't know if you probably saw that when the girls all came up on stage with the guys. It was like, I think, the men's fitness, and they were all, I mean, it's like everybody was pulling for everybody,
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a good experience, Leo, and you've chosen a good organization to align yourself with, because INBA are fantastic. And as an example, you'll recall the actual room that the event was held in. Now, you guys were near the door there. Now, on the Thursday, they have athlete registration, so we come through that door where your stand was, and the registration tables are on the far side of the room. On the Thursday, it takes me 2 hours to get from the door to the registration table, because
goodness.
I'm talking to people.
Oh yeah.
Everybody stops me for a chat or a photo or something.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows everybody, and it's like one big happy family, and it really brings the world together. Because we're all from the same cut, I guess, or the same silk. We all do the same thing. We all go through the same thing. I think we all respect each other for that.
No, it was really quite obvious, very thick in the air. I mean, I was just, like I said, I was just very lucky to be a part of it, you know? So now you just reawakened the bear inside of me. Now I want to be in the middle of it all. You know, I want to get to know everybody, and, you know, I'm just having a great time. Like, you know, even in this podcast, I mean, you and I hung out that one evening, and it was just like, man, this is just something that I definitely want to be a part of. So we're getting close here to the end, but who do you think makes better clients, females or males?
Females.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead.
You can't tell men what to do. Men can't be told by men what to do because of their ego.
Yeah.
And, you know, the best clients, Leo, are the novices, the people who are first coming into the industry or whatever, because you don't have to undo the bad habits.
Yeah. Ooh, those are tough to undo that. I think you can make guys do something, Ken. Here's my take. I think you can make another male do something if it appears that it's their idea, even though it's yours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Pretty much.
But no, I agree. I think the women, I mean, I think they have a stronger work ethic overall.
Yep.
And I've always said that maybe this is being like, I don't know. I think that has to do with childbearing. I think that, you know, come on, you're carrying somebody for 8-9 months. Isn't that like getting ready for a bodybuilding show in a way? I mean, that is, you've got to have a lot of, to put up with that. And I think that has something to do with it, because they are strong-minded and they are dedicated. In my facility, when I first started back in 82 with my personal training studio, 90% of my clientele were men, 10% were women. Now, keep in mind that that time, women were like, they didn't want to go to the gym because they were certain that if they stepped into the gym and started weight training, they were going to look like Schwarzenegger in about 3 months. You know, that was just that's just what they thought. You know, of course, now, you know, 38 years later, for me, 90% of my clientele are women. It's just the reverse of that. And I love it. I mean, these guys, that you can count on them. They're consistent. And I was just curious if that was the same for you. So you and I agree. And
it's interesting you said, Leo, about the childbirth. When girls come to me for competition preparation for the first time, I say to them, this is the second hardest thing you'll ever do in your life.
You're probably very right. They probably totally agree with you on that, right?
Yeah, true.
That's one of the few times that women will actually agree with a man, I think.
Yeah.
So you hit it right on the head. Okay, so what's up? What's next for you? Are you still competing? Are you going to compete again next year?
Yeah, I've got a big year lined up next year. So 21st of March, I'm back on stage in Cape Town in South Africa. And I believe that will make me, and that will be at the INBA African International Championships.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that will make me the first ever INBA competitor to compete in all 5 continents on Earth.
Beautiful. What an accomplishment, man. We used to talk about living the bodybuilding lifestyle, you know, back when I was living in a hotel there close to Gold's Gym, and, you know, I was like 2 blocks away. We were living the lifestyle back then, you know, and you're doing to this day, it sounds like. You know?
Something similar,
Yeah, so I commend you for that, you know, and obviously you're great for the sport, and I'm just warning you, I'm going to ride your coattails, Ken, okay? Even though you're like, how many miles away? 6,000, 8,000 miles away?
A lot, yeah.
You don't know what you're getting yourself into with me. I want to just ride, you know, back in 92 with Platts, you know, he came on board with me for a while, and I rode his coattails. Tom was really great for the sport. I learned a lot from him because he knew so much and knew so many people, and you're that guy, you know, over there, I can tell. So I hopefully we'll do a lot of stuff together, and I think between the both of us, we can conquer the world. I still believe that.
Hey, I'm totally with you on that one, Leo. Let's do it.
Sounds good. Listen, Ken, I think that on this podcast today, I think we told the truth about a lot of stuff, and I really do appreciate the fact that you came on. I'm honored that you would come on and we could have a chat about this, and let's just do some stuff down the road, okay?
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me on SeriousGrowth.com.
Okay, sir. Is there anything that you would like to promote on the podcast that people should go see on your website or anything?
Yeah, and if anybody's after competition preparation or just general health and fitness programs, I do 24/7 online, anywhere in the world, any language. Just go to flexr6.com. That's Foxtrot Lima Echo X-Ray Romeo and the number 6.com. Or you can find me on Instagram at FlexR6. Or if you go to Facebook, FlexR6 Fitness Solutions, or Ken Ross. And I'm pretty much available 24/7, and I can help you with any of your fitness, nutrition, health, or bodybuilding competition preparation goals.
Hey, it doesn't get better than that, Ken. Anyway, let's talk again soon sometime, okay?
We will do. Thank you, Leo. Let's talk tomorrow.
Yeah. All right, man. Take care.
All right, take care. Bye now. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Serious Growth Podcast. For more episodes like the one you just listened to, subscribe to us on your mobile podcast app and leave us a review. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us online at seriousgrowth.com. Until next time, train smart and train hard.